Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Brawley City Council and successor agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency. Regular meeting for Tuesday, February 17th at 6. We can have roll call, please.
The minutes will reflect all council members present.
And our invocation by Pastor Arturo Pesquera of Victory Outreach Church. If you could please come up, Pastor.
Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we come before you this evening, God, praying right now, Lord, that you will give a favor to the council, Lord, the city members, God, right now, my God, that whatever they speak about tonight, Lord God, that you will give them wisdom, God, and as they discuss informational reports, city council member reports, city managers reports, treasurers reports, city attorneys reports, city clerks report, as they pray, God, today, as they think, Lord, that they decide the right decisions they got to make, oh God, Jesus, Lord, that you will be in the midst of everything, Lord God. Give them understanding, Lord, as they plan, God, for the future, God, whatever areas in financial, God, whatever areas that need to be met today, God, that you will be in the midst, God. We thank you, Lord. We give you honor. We give you the glory. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Councilmember Couchman, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Couchman? Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. It's some cool water now. Too much coffee. All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion to approve. There's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public appearances comments, but before I do that, I would like to offer a happy birthday to Christopher Ferguson. He's been working with us here in the city of Brawley for many years, and I wanted to recognize him publicly for his contribution to our community and for celebrating his birthday today. And we have a little birthday cake for you. So happy birthday. I'll pass this along. So again, happy. There you go. You better tear that thing up. It's going to start to fall to pieces there. So
Chris,
happy birthday. Just a little token of our appreciation.
That's it. Throw it.
All right. You're welcome. Happy birthday. Enjoy it. So thank you, Councilmember Couchman.
You're welcome.
So the next item on the agenda is public appearances and comments, not to exceed 4 minutes. This is a time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment? Come on up.
Hey friends, how's it going? My name's Eric Sanchez. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys might have gotten a little word of this art walk I've been planning. I just want to talk more about the advantages of a micro business or micro economy such as the art walk to a real economy.
Okay.
Bringing together local artists, downtown businesses, and the public where everyone can mingle, appreciate a vast variety of art, support the arts, and ultimately connect more deeply with the community. So the art brings people together. It's like, hey, look at that piece. That's pretty cool. There's a guy playing a saxophone. I like that.
Right.
Art walks are a great way for downtown businesses to get people in the doors and draw locals and visitors downtown. And it's a great way for local artists or not to explore downtown and really feel like a part of their community. It makes for a pleasant night out where customers can enjoy downtown without being in a schedule, rushing, I got to be back at work.
Right.
It's more of an atmosphere. It's chill. It's nice. It encourages people to take advantage of all the things we have to offer, such as the restaurants, shopping, Art walks allow a free venue to people who may not otherwise find themselves ever in an art studio or a gallery. They're becoming more and more common in smaller towns. Those art-oriented events are a way to promote civic pride, celebrate local culture, and boost the economy development. All the small businesses in the area that transform into galleries overnight increase visibility, not to mention their street cred with the artists. Supporters of local arts and cultures, people who drop in might stay for dinner, go out for a drink, even do a little shopping. Visitors are given a reason to pause, take a look, enjoy life. It gives the town a chance to share their character. Much of the art celebrates place and where that underscores each town's physical beauty. We have stellar sunsets. I'm sure there's a landscaper out there, a landscape painter that paints all of those. Let's see here. One of the best things about an art walk is the pride it builds within the community. People in neighboring towns would begin to see Brawley as a center for creative arts. In the region, the bustling crowd of neighbors, friends, and strangers that come out every first Friday show residents that their town, local, and business have something special to share. Art, let's see.
Let's go off script there for a second.
Yeah, of course.
Define it for us. Just have me put the vision in my head. Where would it start? Where would it end? What do you have in mind?
The idea is to start on South 6th Street all the way
Okay.
to South Plaza. There's those parking lots and that alley. And the alley looks run down during the daytime.
Right.
If you put some lights right across that,
Right.
you make everything change.
Of course, right.
You have artists set up through the alleys, vendors, food vendors, live musicians, live artists. We're thinking about pop-up galleries. I know we only have one gallery, and then we could make the Rock or Big Fellas into another gallery, but maybe just a pop-up gallery and be like, hey, we ran out of spaces here. Let's just make a fence, put a little fake wall up there.
Sure.
Instant right there. It's all about atmosphere, having a good time.
Maybe have a musician playing, like, and I've been to other Sunset Market type things,
Right.
and, different events where you could have maybe somebody who is painting and maybe somebody's playing a saxophone or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Like busting,
Sure.
It's pretty cool. I've been to a couple. They're tons of fun. It really does bring the community together.
Do you have an idea of a group of people that are committed to doing this with you? Or
Yes, I have I like to call them a little creative collection.
Sure.
They're big thinkers. I consider myself a big dreamer, but I actually work with it.
Good.
So I don't just sit there and I wish I could do this. I actually put myself into it. A lot of people tell me I put fire under people's butts, and
Good. Sometimes that's
I get
good.
stuff done.
Yeah, even for us.
Yeah.
It's fire under us, so that's good.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
They're calling me, what are they saying? The mid-20s guys are starting to move stuff around.
That's good. I like the concept. And of course, you know that we're focusing on our arts district and things that we can do downtown. I like the idea. It's
Yeah.
creative. It's different. I like different. And so, do you have an idea of when you would like to maybe propose starting that, or what organization you could work with?
We've been working with NOCA and DS Arts. I've talked to the American Legion. They're on boat. The Rock is in, does a review. Big Fellas. I was thinking March 6th. And
March 6th?
I like to do stuff really fast. It's the only way I could ever get stuff
Sure.
done.
Comments from our city manager?
Sure.
I think she has a little bit more background on this, but thank you.
I was invited to meet with Mr. Sanchez at DS Arts about a week ago. Was really excited to see the energy and enthusiasm of the folks assembled. We are ready as staff to work with this cluster of artists as well as any other, and welcome the chance to partner and use city facilities. So this potentially involves the G Street parking lot. We definitely have occasion to use that area for other activities that have been planned throughout the year, primarily through Victory Outreach Church has utilized that space. One of the great things about Mr. Sanchez is he has very quickly pursued conversations with any number of organizations to look at areas of feedback that we provided, which were things like if there's going to be alcohol consumption, we need to have somebody with an ABC license. If there's insurance, if a special event is held, insurance will be required, and all those pieces have already begun to take shape with potential partners. So we're really excited to work with Mr. Sanchez and with NOCA and bring this project to life here in the city of Brawley.
Mr. Sanchez, I have another question. With respect to the events, you're talking about every Friday, is there like a season for it, or is it something that you'd want to do for
Yes,
a good
I wanted to do a trial run till the summer, because, no one's going to come out during summer. So I was thinking 3 for all the way, starting March all the way till May, and then take that little summer off and start again in September.
So what we will do is help Mr. Sanchez with processing paperwork. We need an event application that would be processed through our Parks and Rec department, and we'll help to work with him on all the requirements that must be met for a special event of this type.
So we're looking at the event to take place like on Friday evening, March the 6th.
Which would mean we'd need the alcohol consumption item to be on the city council agenda, first meeting in March.
if that's going to be pursued, at least for the first one.
Correct.
Or maybe there could be a location where people are going to drink, like Inferno or some other place.
The Legion said they'll open
Or
the
the
doors.
Legion, yeah.
But they only need someone to sign, a member
Sure,
to
a
sign
member to sign
to
for
be
them.
at the bar.
So maybe there's alternatives for that if that's not the case initially, right? So that's good. Are there any?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Sanchez, have you done this before?
I've been in many parts of this art culture in Phoenix, and then I did a little work in Marseille, France.
Okay, so, yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm, because it sounds like quite an undertaking. You're already kind of checking things off the list, which is great, so.
Yeah, there's definitely experience I have behind it.
Good, thank you.
Start small. I mean, it just perfect it. I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea.
I'm very supportive of it. I just have a few concerns, and those are lighting at an evening event. We want to make sure everybody's safe. There may be some obstacles we'll need to overcome there in terms of that and how you set up lighting and how safe that is for people, along with law enforcement and everybody else that's there. Also, the only other issue I would caution you on is that March the 6th is the Midwinter Fair, and it's the final weekend of the Midwinter Fair. And so I think there's a junior livestock auction, the small animal auction occurs on that evening. There's some other things going on. Whether that would have any impact or not, I do not know. It's just something that you need to be aware of.
Right.
Because you are going to be competing, but you're probably going to be competing with an event no matter what day you have it on. So it doesn't, those are just some of the things that you'll need to think about.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the idea. Even almost getting the concept of the event out of it.
Yes.
It's just sort of, it's
See how
just,
it works.
it's just it's not an event because if you almost promote it that way, it's like we're having mariachi night or something. It's not that. It's just a walk. It's art. It's much different. So I'm supportive of it. I can see where you're coming from. So I hope
on.
it's successful. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys very much.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Appreciate you coming up here. Thank you,
you.
Mr. Sanchez.
Cheers.
Best of luck. All right.
Thank you.
Are there any other public appearances or comments?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, staff. Jason Zara, Brawley Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to start out, as always, by saying thank you for another successful farmers market. I'm greatly appreciative of your staff members who were forced to spend part of their Valentine's Day out there working. But it was another really great day, and we had more vendors than ever, continuing to grow and thrive. And we were a little worried that what Valentine's Day might do to the turnout, but it was overall a very successful event. We're very pleased. Once again, thank you as always. The staff did a fantastic job. We really appreciate the signage that was put up to help, so we didn't have any parking issues this time. And it was a fantastic day. The next thing I wanted to let you know about, and personally invite the council and staff and anybody from the public who's interested, the North Valley Toastmasters Club is officially chartered, and tomorrow night at 5:30 at the Best Western is our chartering ceremony. So we're having our official to-do. It's going to be a little bit, there will be a little sample meeting. Basically, you'll get a taste of what a Toastmasters meeting would be like, but it'll be a little bit abbreviated. And then we'll be giving out certificates. And also, we'll be doing some surveys on the best day and time to meet, because Friday at noon is our current meeting time, and there have been some people with difficulties getting there, so we're going to do some surveys on morning, noon, or night, what's our best day, what's our best time. So look forward to seeing you all there. It's going to be a great event. It's going to 5:30 to only about 7 o'clock. Should go pretty quick. And we're very proud of our new club. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public that would like to come up and make an appearance or comment?
They were trying to figure out who was coming up
Who's
first.
the spokesperson?
Hi, my name is Frank Chavez. I'm here in support of my neighbor, Elizabeth Nunez, who couldn't be here because currently she's trapped in her house. She lives at 1661, I think, 1661 A Street, and she only has one way in, one way out. And right now, it's got a couple of fences blocking that access. She's not getting trash service. I know she's getting water and sewer because that goes through the front property, but she lives in the back house, and I'm just here to support her,
Mr. Chavez, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Some comments have been shared with us today with regards to this situation, and our city manager has provided some information to us, and we're having city staff look at that issue at this time. So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Actually, we have had an opportunity to reestablish trash service. Allied Waste was out on premises. I'm going to look for our city engineer today. And services have been reestablished. There are a pretty complicated set of circumstances out there that involve access to the property, and with the help of legal counsel, we're looking at venues that may or may not be available to the city to pursue.
All right.
And I have to add to this also, she has cancer, and she also shared with me that she doesn't have a long time to live, and she would like to get this situation done before anything happens to her. So if we could kind of take action a little faster, I would really appreciate it.
She's got two little girls,
Yes.
and anyway, thank you.
Mr. Chavez, thank you for coming up here on behalf of your neighbor. Thank you.
I do have a comment. I went by that property today, and I'm familiar with that property. And I seen where the fence was installed to block the entrance to enter into that property in between the properties. I'm not for sure if there's any obligation on the city's part, but what I would ask for our staff to do is to make sure that the city doesn't have any obligations there and allow someone to block an entrance like that to someone else's property that doesn't have that right. I want us to see us do that. I went by there today to look at that.
I think we're all in support of that as well. So.
Just for the council's information, we have looked at it, we are looking at it. It does look like it is a private issue, that there's not a city right-of-way there. So that it's likely there's very little that the city can do about it. This is something that unfortunately they're going to have to resort to the courts for, and we're not a court.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and again, there's some weird circumstances there. I went by and looked at the property, and the entrance to that property going in that parcel, it has a driveway there. There's a driveway going across the sidewalk there, so something happened there. I just want to make sure that the city doesn't have some type of obligation that's going to allow someone to block the entrance of someone else's property. That's not proper.
And typically in real estate matters, it is likely a matter between both parties, but usually when somebody's been traveling over a course of land for so long, they gain rights over time. So that may be something that they could look at.
And that's something they can look at, but the venue you appeal to is down.
Right, it's not us.
Courthouse,
right,
not at
right,
the city hall.
absolutely.
And which, whatever it is, please give them an answer. I mean,
Well, I think I just did give the answer. There's very little we can do. They need to resort to the court.
okay, so this means that we can't do anything, right? I just need to get that out to her, so that if it's something she's going to have to go to court, she needs to do it now.
I understand she's talked to very, very competent legal counsel in Brawley, very competent with real estate matters, and if she goes with him, she'll be in good hands.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Carmen Araujo. I live on 1065 K Street. I came to because about this, that you're talking about, this closure of a road to this lady. The property owners at the west side, Best Road, they both at first one put a gate. They didn't want nobody to go through there. And now the other person put a fence or whatever. People used to go through there because there's no alley and there's nothing to go through there. So they use it the way it was. It's ugly, but anyway, that's the way they use it, especially this lady they're talking about, because that was the only way to get to her property. And I don't know, to me, I think the city do something about it, because it's been there for years and years, and it's a bunch of trees there, and a bunch of junk, and then there's some addicts or whatever. They get there, they hide there, they even live there, and they do a lot of stuff that they're not supposed to. So really, it's a must that you do something. And I think after all these years, you should try and make an alley or something, because the property owners there, they do need an alley or they do need something to get through there. And one time there was a fire in the back, and the fire stations were running around. They didn't know how to get in there, because two of my daughters live right there, and then we have there's another property, and two of my daughter and my sister-in-laws, they live there. So, and it's not a big, maybe it's about a block or two, but to me, you should try and get to it and open some kind, put an alley or something. Because anyway, the town is gonna go that way, for sure. Since the 111 is going there, and thanks God, after 60 years, me and my husband worked fighting for that fire station that they finally put in there. The town is growing. You need to do something. The same thing with this hazard you have here on G Street and 8th. I don't know who that belongs to, but that's ugly. I'm ashamed of it. I was born here in Brawley, and we used to have better things when I was young than right now. It's because you just let things go. You have to find some grants or something that would help clear some of the things. And one of those, that road does need to look into it and do something about it. Same thing on B Street. They just, the road right there at Oakley, they just, about a block from there, they closed it. For years they said they were gonna open up to the best road. They never did. They just let things go. I know. On the east side, you let things go. You don't really pay attention to our needs.
I don't think that's true, Mrs. Araujo. I'd have to disagree with you. We've done a lot of things on the east side and throughout the community. And I realize that you're frustrated and you're sharing some of your concerns, and we respect that. But since we've worked very hard to make improvements throughout the community, so I would have to disagree with that comment.
Okay, I'm sorry if I said the wrong thing, but anyway, I hope you do something about that area, and you can go over and look and see that if somebody wanted to go through their back, there's no way they can get in through there. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Araujo.
Nice.
We appreciate it.
Take care, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just so I'm clear on this property, and I haven't been through there, is it landlocked because of the fence? It is landlocked?
It is.
It is landlocked.
There's no, there was historic use from east to west, but the property owner, who is one parcel to the west of Best Road, fronting River, has erected a fence. And his interest in erecting it was to, according to him, and I spoke with him and his wife this morning, the issues associated with illegal dumping and undesirable traffic, they just couldn't take it anymore.
What about emergency services? If, for example, there were a 911 call for medical attention, how do we address that?
I have requested that both the police chief and fire chief evaluate the situation out there, because that topic was raised by the property owner with us. We have notes being prepared for dispatch, along with a map regarding access in the event of a 911 call. It will require us to enter private property in an unconventional way. There is not a public right-of-way or public easement that we have discovered that would allow us to gain access to that rear parcel.
Even if it is not a city issue, and we're saying it may be resolved in the courts privately, can we communicate at the very least that information with the property owner that did erect the fence with respect to a 911 call or emergency call, so they understand that if it would require removal of the fence and on an emergency call, that would be part of the solution?
Yes, I will definitely do follow-up with the property owner because there were several questions that arose with the visit today. I'm not convinced that that's actually the fastest access to that property. If a 911 call did come in and getting there as quickly as possible were the end goal, the address will automatically pop up in the it's basically the center of the block as opposed to being closer to Best or another Eastern, I guess.
If I can just throw in a comment, and I know this is not an agenda item, but it was brought to our attention, thank you, City Manager, I was briefed on it, so I had an opportunity to go out there and kind of drive and take a look as well. I understood right away it's not necessarily city jurisdiction, but I think the right thing to do is just stay, I think as a city, to monitor and support and help any which way we can. And I think that's what we're hearing here tonight. And maybe if that leads to faster resolution, then that's what we're looking for. At the end of the day, there's got to be a solution. So rather than this resident having to go through the ringer, you know, so to speak, through the legal system, understand that might be the pathway, but I think as a city, if we could just stay engaged and know what's happening.
Yeah, because if you look at where the fence has been installed, that gentleman's property is facing south. He installed that fence across that entryway, completely butting up against the property across the other side, right? Is that what you seen, Donnie?
Yeah.
In other words, if you look at the drive-through, that fence crosses over past that drive-through and butts up against the property, the other property on the south side.
Yeah, which I think the challenge is none of us in this room know what the actual legal description of property lines are. Yeah, which requires that.
I mean, we're looking at a plat map, but it doesn't, I don't know what's
described that. But I think as our city manager pointed out, it seems that there is another pathway that kind of runs, was it north-south, off onto River. So it's kind of one of those, in case of emergency, there is a way in that I think is unobstructed. But again, no matter what, it requires crossing private property.
Right, you're going to have to cross private property in order to get that. And so it may have been something that was, I don't know the history of the property, but it could have been that that parcel belonged to, or both parcels belonged to one person at one point and they sold one. So it could, you know, but who knows?
It's a classic law school prescriptive easement type case, but it requires a judge to decree one, not a city council.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think it's important also that the public understand that that property was not part of the city originally, and its history works through, I think, a special Brawley water district or something of that nature. And so that property was developed, and I believe those homes were built out there prior to the city having any kind of permitting process with them or anything that's related to that. And so I think that's where some of the problem comes in, because it was somewhat grandfathered in when it was annexed, and I don't think anything was really done in the area of alleys or easements or any of that type of thing. So I think it's important to realize the history of that was not initially the city's issue, and now it's becoming more of a city issue. I think that this is a private property issue, though, right now, and I agree it may have to go through the courts. Certainly, we can keep, I would encourage the city to keep an eye on that, see where the progress goes, make sure we have emergency access, see if we can do anything to alleviate this situation. Maybe there's something that the property owners can agree to, where there's a gate, where it keeps the people that they don't want through there, but maybe somebody could access, maybe the residents in there could work out some kind of agreement to access at least temporarily until whatever happens, I think, at this point in time. So.
And it sounds like the owner of the property has retained an attorney, and if there is the need to describe our viewpoint with respect to emergency services entering the property, then I guess we could provide that information. But Mr. Chavez, again, thank you for bringing the item up to City Council, and we'll discuss it further. Thank you. Is there any other public appearances or comments? Mr. Miguel Miranda.
I should have been the first one, but Mr. Chavez beat me to it.
Sanchez, yeah.
Good afternoon, leaders of our community and ladies, sir. My name is Miguel Miranda, 297 Driftwood Place here in beautiful Brawley. Just two concerns on that same matter. I'm not an attorney, but there's a clause in the law known as easement by necessity, which I understand that in the event that that's the only way to get into, to have access to the property, it could be utilized. I remember in 1994, when I was part of the council here, we had that same issue on that particularly place, and also here on, I believe, the 600 block of 3rd Street. To the present, it was basically a mutual friendly neighborhood that decided to leave that, sort of call it an alley for emergency vehicles only, and my understanding is still there. I don't know if that owner just newly moved in or decided, well, you know, forget about that friendly neighborhood issue that we had. I'm gonna put a fence, but it was brought up back in 1984, and yes, city is not. I don't want to say it's not liable, but it's not part of the city of Brawley. But the folks around that community got together and they said, well, we're going to look into it. The gentleman, the father, Mr. Rufino, I believe, Rodrigo, Mr. Nunez, who is, unfortunately, he's passed to a better life. The father of Elizabeth Nunez, he's actually was spearhead at that time and was able to talk to those residents, and they allow that. Came from Brawley Tire Company, and there was a lot of traffic going in back and forth. Some of the concern of the individuals where they were throwing and dumping illegal waste and stuff like that. But maybe, I don't know, gentleman, Mr. Smurden, might, look into it or advise the Mrs. Nunez and some of the folks around there that easement by necessity, but it's probably going to cost their time, and I don't know about money, but they will need to go to a court or to an attorney and see maybe they can deal something out in the meantime. My concern is also, there's a lady out there, she has her kids, and God forbid a fire was to happen this evening, what are we going to do? And maybe we can, as community leaders and concerned citizens, we can do something to avoid, tragedies. And I know it's out of your hands, but you all have a heart, and I know you can help out. Thank you.
Mr. Miranda, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Are there any other public appearances or comments?
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Simon Servin. I live on 1621 East 8th Street, and I am one of the property owners that have also a mobile home in the back. And that is a big concern for me for any emergency, either police or ambulance or fire department going in there. So if you work together and try to solve this problem, as soon as possible, because somebody's going to be liable, actually.
Mr. Servino, if you don't mind me asking, how long have you lived in that area?
Since 1978, I believe.
Has it always been that way prior to recently?
No, I remember that sometime back, I don't know, maybe 20-some years ago, the city wanted to open that street, extend that Magnolia, and I guess they asked the property owners to, give whatever the easement,
right,
to do that, but it never went through, but I was, very willing to give whatever part of the property in order to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened after that.
Well, now the issue's before us, and we're going to revisit the topic, and I know our city attorney certainly has looked at the matter and doesn't look like at least there can be anything done by the city currently.
Okay.
But as other council members have expressed, we're going to continue to follow the topic and get the best information that we can to make sure that people are protected. So.
And so how you gonna communicate that to some of the property owners there?
And we can have a follow-up.
card.
Yeah. So.
I'd be happy to give my contact information, and
Okay.
I'm always accessible.
All right,
No, sir.
thank you.
Mr. Sidwin, thank you. Are there any other public appearances or comments?
Hi, I'm Yolanda Romero. I live in 1653 East 8th Street. I'm one of her neighbors. I was born and raised there. My concern is that right now she needs to get out to the doctors and this, and she can't. That's why if she came to the meeting today, she was going to have to get a taxi and go through the walking from 111. What I see is, we use alley too. When we clean up the backyards, a lot of us have trailers. We all have things in the back that sometimes we just need to get rid of. I understand what they say regarding to there was drug addicts or people like that, but I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
It's all right, don't be nervous.
It's okay.
The property in the back had a lot of trailers, and they cleaned that up. So, but it's true, a lot of people there do use it as the neighbors. Like they were saying about the tire company that's there. And the only reason it doesn't go all the way through, because there's a big giant tree that blocks it going towards Eastern. And that would be probably another way, but that's what's blocking it too.
There's a huge salt-cedar tree right in the middle.
Yes.
Right in the middle of it.
And for her, it's just like about four or five houses to 111. So that access would be closer to her.
Well, thank you for the comments again, and maybe there's an alternative to fixing the issue. Is the concern, and I hate to speak for somebody because I'm not sure what the owner of the property, they're not here, but their concern was that there was just a lot of traffic, trash, and things of that nature. Is that correct?
The individuals who constructed the fence, is
Yes,
that the person you're
yes.
asking me? They were concerned about the in and out across their private property, illegal dumping, and illicit activity.
Okay.
They indicated that there had been drug paraphernalia found at the rear of their property. There was lots of undesirable items that were very close to their home.
And maybe that's something we can address, even if we can't certainly resolve boundary issues, but maybe that'll help alleviate the concern and open up the access point, so.
You know, Mr. Chavez, the gentleman that put put the fence up, did he say anything to the neighbors before he done that?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Well, she called me up and she said that this happened during the weekend.
Mr. Chavez, if you
Right.
could come up, please.
She called me up during the weekend, I don't know if it was this, a couple of weekends ago, stating that she was on her way out, and I guess she had noticed holes in the alley, like they were going to. He was going to put the pipes there, the fence posts. And they, well, more or less, she felt threatened. She felt threatened. And he was upset because of the trash that was being dumped right there. And so she went out, she went to the store, came back, and then the sofas were back blocking the road, so they had to get off the truck and more or less drag those sofas out of the way. And she went in, and that's when she called me and told me about what happened, about being verbally attacked, verbally abused, if you want to call it that way, that way.
Well, Mr. Chavez, if you could just relay the message of the things that you've heard here, and we'll follow up, certainly, and we'll take it at that time. So, again, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to make an appearance or has a comment?
My name is Adeline Valles, and I am a friend, very dear friend of Elizabeth. I've known her all her life. And she had called me too, that she was threatened, and he even put a sign on the side of the fence that it says, "I'm videotaping you," and not to cross. And she was crying when she called me and told me that he had told her that she had to use the excess of that, and he said no. That I said, how am I going to go to the doctor? It's not my concern. Says, I don't care. And I said, well, what did you tell him? Did you raise your voice or anything? No, I couldn't. Says, so when he said that he was going to have his rifle there, I went to the police department and I made a report. I said, good for you. So it can be on file. And I said, and what did he do? He says, when I came back, I couldn't do anything because I was so upset and everything. So I know that I'm fearing for my life and my girls too. I said, and I am to the very point that I went to the oncologist and my cancer is spreading because I'm all under this stress. I said, well, just keep on praying and see what we can do. So she called me yesterday and she says, I cannot go with you. I said, well, is there any other way that you can, I'll pick you up wherever. She says, I can't, because I'm all blocked in. Says, and then he did put the fence and everything. Says, and I can't move. Says, and I am very upset, and I know that I'm sick, and it's creating more problems for me. And so I said that I was going to come here with Frankie and some of the neighbors and see what could be done, because I do feel that she is, like she told me some time ago, she doesn't have too much to live. And those little girls are, what's going to happen? She has to go to the doctor. And there's no excess, what can be done? And I feel so sorry for her. She has gone to other mediums, and doesn't seem like she's getting anywhere. And it's getting worse and worse. So I sure hope and pray that all of you can help her.
Well, appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Ceballos.
Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to consent agenda. And thank you all for your comments. I know it's a concern of yours and certainly is one of ours. And we'll work with our city staff and our city attorney to see if there's anything the city of Brawley can do. But I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda. It's consent agenda.
Mayor Nava, if I may just make one point relative to item 3C, which is the fireworks ordinance, the second reading. At the request of council, our city attorney did do a follow-up review to ensure that if there are two applicants that are school affiliated, that the language either was amended to restrict it to one or was very clear in its present state. It's been determined that the language as presented adequately addresses the issue. In other words, only one applicant will be able to come forward from the high school that's a high school affiliated entity.
Thank you for the clarification. Any questions from council? So is there a motion to approve the consent, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is regular business, 4B. That's how it's listed, but it's 4A, I imagine.
Yes, it is. My apologies.
Review and staff direction, preliminary findings of City of Brawley water, sewer, and stormwater rate study, prepared by Bartle Wells Associates.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Ruby Walla, Finance Director. This evening, we have before you is preliminary findings to a water, wastewater, and stormwater rate study that was approved, a contract that was approved with Bartle Wells about a year ago now, this month, in February of last year. And today what we're going to have is a presentation presented by Doug Dove and Alex Levin of Bartle and Associates, which will review preliminary findings. Staff has been working diligently with Bartle Wells to we were having frequent conference calls going over financial position, capital projects, and so forth, and coming down to details as far as for council and presentation and recommendation for next steps. So it's a preliminary findings. They have a presentation for you this evening, and then at the conclusion to just get council's direction as far as next steps moving forward. Now I'll present Doug Dove and Alex Levin.
Public comment went an extended period, so let's.
Is that the right one?
Yeah, that's it.
The next one. Right, you got it. Thank you.
There you go. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Doug Dove, and this is Alex Levin, and we are here to present a summary of our preliminary findings with respect to the water and sewer rates, and get some input. We want to go over some scenarios that we're looking at and get your feedback, and identify any other scenarios that may be that we need to look at. But basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background, our rate study methodology, revenue requirements and capital projects, some different options for increasing the rates. We're going to look at a survey of surrounding communities to see how your rates compare to your neighbors, and then talk a little bit about the timeline going forward. So what's going on, you've annual cost increases with insurance, salaries, what have you. You've got a lot of capital projects that have been identified in your master plans, and so we're going to look at some different scenarios of funding those capital projects. What we're finding right now is that expenses are outpacing revenues. You're facing small deficit right now in the water and wastewater fund, even if we didn't have any capital needs. So you're also seeing water conservation with the drought, which is reducing revenues, and you've lost a significant industrial user. So with all that, we are working on a rate study, and there's a lot of different parts to the rate study. We start with the costs and the revenue requirements, and then we look at your unit costs and your rates, the different categories: commercial, residential, industrial. And then we look at different capital scenarios, and then we put it together and come up with a final rate recommendation, and go forward with a Prop 218 process, which includes mailing out a notice of the proposed increases. And then there's a 45-day waiting period, and then a public hearing. So we are not at the final rate recommendations. We want to get your input before we get to that point. Your revenue requirement is basically the cost of producing the water and treating the wastewater. And so in our study, the goals are we want to have you have a strong financial position for your utilities. We want to have a balanced budget, positive cash flow, so we're not running deficits, and meet debt service coverage. You have some loans and outstanding debt on the water and wastewater utilities, and so there's some requirements that you maintain revenues at certain levels. So for water, your revenues are projected for this current fiscal year at about $5.9 million. And so that will be slightly short of the $6.1 million
projected costs. And so the difference would be made up by reducing fund reserves. The wastewater fund, we're looking at $6.8 million in costs and projected revenues of $4.3 million plus a $1.25 million state grant. So we're still short about $1 million in wastewater. So wastewater is a little more urgent than water, but both are currently in a deficit. This is a summary of the water revenues and expenses, and you can see the revenues are about $5.9 million, and then your expenses for operations about $4.7 million, which leaves you a net operating revenue, and then we have debt service for loans, and then also some capital projects. And so we're seeing about a $200,000 deficit in water this year. And then wastewater, again, about $1 million deficit. And so hence the reason why we're doing the rate studies. And so capital is a big part of this need for the rate increase. And so what we've done is we've come up with different levels of capital spending. In a perfect world, we'd have lots of money, and the engineers in the master plan have identified a lot of projects that are needed, a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built. Now, in the real world, we can't always afford that much. So we've looked at some different scenarios, starting with what we call a critical CIP, which is kind of a minimum. And then we have a low CIP, which adds a few other highly desired projects onto that. And so the critical CIP for water is about $4 million. And then if we add on some of those other projects, and we're talking about commercial water meters and some line replacements, it goes up to $9 million. This is over the next 5 years. So it's not just next year, it's over the next 5 years. The medium CIP would add in some line replacement and increase to about $48 million. So you can see the dollars are getting pretty high. And our idea was that we were going to apply for state grants and loans for those larger projects and see what we can get for funding those. But we really want to impress upon you the need for some of these critical CIP projects regardless of the funding. On wastewater, we have about $6 million in critical projects, and I'm going to go through those in a minute. We have a line replacement package, which would look for financing grants and loans, about $23 million, and a stormwater package of about $7 million. So that's what we're looking at. The actual individual projects are listed here. These are the critical projects, about $4 million for water. And then we have some detail on the other projects, going up to the full, what we call a full CIP scenario. And then on wastewater, again, we have got the critical projects and then some other packages that we're going to apply for grant funding for. So what does this look like if we do the numbers on the rate increases to fund these packages? So with the critical CIP and eliminating the operating deficit, we will be looking at fairly modest increases here on scenario one of a total of, I need to
hard to see.
Look at this, yeah.
So $13.42, is that?
Yeah.
$13.42 increase. Oh, that's at the end of the 5 years.
Right. After 5 years.
And then on the wastewater, these critical projects would require a $12.72 a month increase by the end of the 5 years. So then let's look at what this translates to in percent increases. So this option one critical CIP would require for water 5.5% increase the first year, followed by 2 more 5.5s, and then 2 4% increases. On the wastewater, it would be a little bit higher, about 6.5 the first year, followed by 2 6s, and then 2 3% increases. And you can see for the other packages, if we did not get grant and loan funding, those increases are fairly significant, up to 123% for water cumulative over the 5 years for the full CIP. So you've got a lot of funding needs, and so the question is, how much do we want to try to accomplish, and at what level do we feel comfortable with? Here's a chart showing what happens if we do no rate increase, and this is with the minimal rate scenario with minimal capital. So you can see the green line goes negative. The fund balance draws down below zero. So that's not really a viable option. So the 4 scenarios, this critical CIP is the lowest of the increases. You can see is the red line. Then we have low, medium, and the full CIP. So we're going to ask you for some input on those different scenarios. And then this provides a survey of the bills, and you can see where you are currently. You're in the middle of the pack in the surrounding communities. And for a typical single-family home, we're talking about, what is this, $50 a month for water.
$49.70? Yeah, well, combined, right? Yeah.
$49.70 a month. And then with this option 1 here, you would go up a little bit to about $52 a month. Option 2 would be slightly higher than that. And then you can see, if we go to the higher capital scenarios, we get higher up in the comparison. So on the wastewater side, again, if we don't have any increases over the 5 years, we're going to draw the fund balance negative. And here's what it looks like with the 3 scenarios on wastewater, the critical CIP being the lowest, and then we have the medium and full CIP. And again, a survey of surrounding communities. Right now, you're in the middle, lower middle, $47.21 per month for wastewater, and that would increase to $50.28 under the option 1. And then the options 2 and 3 would go up to the high end of the curve, $55 and $58. So,
6 cents.
conclusions, revenue increases are needed. Running small deficits right now, plus you have a lot of capital projects. We think increases are needed. Just how much, we want to get your feedback. And then the timeline is tonight we're presenting some preliminary information. After we get feedback, we'd like to present a draft report to the city at the end of March, and then come back to you for a presentation in April. And this is a preliminary timeline with potentially a draft 218 notice to go out for rate increases. And then that would be April 21st council meeting, and then potentially a June 16th hearing on the rates. So that's the preliminary timeline. So I'd just like to get your feedback on these options, and if there's any other options that you would like us to explore, we'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from council?
I just had a couple of questions, well, at least one. On all of the, when you do the service charge options on the page where you had service charge options, I think that was, I don't know which page, 13? 12 and 13. Right there.
Oh,
yeah.
you want the percents or the dollar?
The percents.
Okay, percents, gotcha.
I'm just wondering why, and maybe you can tell me, why are we upfronting so much of the cost and then lowering it down as we go through the 5-year process? Why don't we even it out as we move along? That might be a factor. I mean, I'm probably more willing to say, I'd rather have everybody at 4.5 than I would at 5.5 necessarily initially,
Yeah.
and then move our way on through, rather than upfronting all the cost, and it looks bigger even in wastewater, at 6.5 versus 3 in 2020. So I'm just wondering why that's done that way, I guess, more than anything.
Good
Yeah,
question.
we can look at smoothing those out, if that would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's my question, I guess. Was there a reason for doing that?
Yes. So for the pay-as-you-go options, currently both funds are running at a deficit, and so those initial increases would be to offset that, and then in the later years, it would just be for annual cost increases, inflationary increases, and then for the bond financing options, to be able to get that kind of funding, it's the debt service requirement. You have to be able
The
to meet
bond
that, and
rating.
that's why it's so large in the beginning, and then it tapers off.
Right. Good question, good point. Another question, with respect to, I mean, obviously, you've taken into consideration some of the offsets from water conservation. That's probably what's driving some of the cost to go up.
Yeah.
We can't predict the future, but if we have a replacement industry where National Beef sat and is a large consumer of water and producer of wastewater, has that been considered, or was that just eliminated entirely and we're using just as-is figures?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of took the situation as it is with no replacement.
Right.
And if we did get something that replaced it, that would be a better case scenario.
Sure.
But we can't count on that.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay.
The question I had is to do with some of what Councilman Councilman talked about with the bond rating and stuff, with the larger increase up front. Is that going to, and I know you can't guarantee that, but is that going to assure us that we're going to be financial sound to be able to apply for grants and some of the assistance?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, you know, we're somewhat conservative when we do our projections, and we want to make sure you're in good financial shape to qualify for grants and loans. And if you need to borrow money through a bank loan or bond, you would be in a good position for that.
Okay. I kind of figured that's what that was, but I just want some clarification.
I think for my concern, just as reviewing this, and this is really just on the surface, but looking at the various options 1 through 4 for the water enterprise, my own opinion would be, it certainly is, you know, options 3 and 4, at least to me, you know, they're just not options that I would consider at this point.
Right.
Options 2 and 1 are probably where I would think that we could be at, especially in the critical pay-as-you-go model. Just because I understand our situation, and we do have a lot of issues with our water enterprise and wastewater enterprise and the issues that we face all the time. But it just would be a very significant increase if we considered anything else, right? So that's just an opinion I wanted to share with the rest of the council.
To go with I have somewhat the same opinion, and I think, I have the same opinion because I can see if we went option 4 and option 3 on wastewater, you're looking at 26.5% increase and 23% increase in the same year. I don't think that the public out there, and especially the low-income public, can take that type of an increase and actually realistically, I don't think they can pay that type of increase. So I think, you know, I would look at option 1 certainly, and maybe even I might consider option 2. But I mean, that would have to be some discussion that I would have to go through.
You know, I would have to say too, we as a group and staff needs to be real careful, because when you look at these kind of increases, when you go through the 218 process, if the folks voted down, they ain't gonna happen anyway. So we need to present something that's solid enough that the people are gonna accept to realize that it is our community and our infrastructure, and we need to make sure that we get this thing through.
Right, and I know that the options of the further down you go, they're a lot more ambitious. You know, there's a lot of things that are being considered there, and we all understand that we do need to repair 100-year-old systems and things like that. But it's still, I know it's presented for our consideration, but I don't know if that's going to be something that we consider.
And our thinking was, for those more expensive projects that we really go after grants and
Grant funding,
loans.
sure.
They're
I
not
think
needed
that's
tomorrow.
pretty much-
So let's see if we can get
No,
in the
it's-
queue and get
It's
some
good
funding.
information,
Yeah.
and Ruby and the staff and finance and all of the city staff, I want to thank you guys for helping put this together.
Like one comment. I think it's worth reiterating, first off, Mr. Dove and Mr. Levin, that this work is real important to us, because clearly the issue facing us right now is we don't generate enough revenue to support these services.
Exactly.
We have to have water, we have to have wastewater, we know that. So I think that's very helpful, at least from my viewpoint, and just learning much more of what it's going to take to move forward and how to prioritize, in our decision-making. Just a couple other questions, if I can add, just to kind of add on. You mentioned the critical CIP category to me is that a little bit like pretty much it's the Band-Aid method. We're just kind of holding on to what we have. In your study, and I know this isn't the first rodeo for you here as well, much like a piece of equipment, when you look at infrastructure with your experience, and we rely on that, do you have forecasting models in terms of, I would assume we really get to where there's diminishing returns, where the cost of this patchwork, if I can put that in air quotes, outpace really some of the options we're looking at here. So at what point, so we can make good decisions, are we considering critical versus low CIP, for example? And could you add some more color to that for us?
It's hard to know exactly, how much, where you get to that point where you're patching pipes so often that it makes more sense to just replace it.
Right.
But
and we've encountered those issues recently. So, and it's a complicated scenario.
But we're seeing that coming on the horizon. So that's why we've got those projects identified for you to see.
That's a good point.
And hopefully we can get some good funding from the state and feds to address that. Yeah. So I don't know exactly.
Yeah, see, and you know this, you do this, professionally, but for us, we're always weighing the interests of all of our citizens, and it becomes very challenging to finance these what can be large-scale projects, really theoretically on the backs of the taxpayers, even though that is how it's funded. We understand that. Even the grant funding, I always remind folks, that's still tax dollars, right, at work. But I think for me, it'll be real important that I really understand. We know our infrastructure is aging. We understand the breaks, but it would be neat if we could see some tangible evidence really tracking that. And to me, just the couple of years I've been able to sit here, it certainly seems like at times it kind of comes in droves, where we have, breakages and whatnot. Weather, certainly. We're, lift stations. I mean, we're making these investments on a continuous basis. So I think this is really important. I would hate to, move forward with an increase for the sake of increasing. I know that's the point of this, but how do we really just better make, as a council, an informed decision on really what needs to happen? Because to me, critical means that's minimum.
Yeah.
Revenues certainly should match, the service we're trying to provide. Expenditures, but on the capital improvement side, that's the investment side. In my opinion, we have to market and sell that concept, not just to us, but to all of us, in the city.
Right. Yeah, and my experience is it's good to keep funding some capital each year. Don't put it off. I've worked with cities that just put it off.
Right.
Yeah.
And it eventually came back, and it was a humongous increase, and nobody was happy. So
And we've experienced that here, so it's not something that's new to us, but I can appreciate what Councilmember Wharton is expressing.
Yeah.
We have a federal representative here. I think she just committed to finding us $40 million. I think, but
got a big check.
So that'll help.
Councilmember Kachman? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Noriega?
Yes. I'm back on your preliminary rate recommendation. You went from 6.5, again, as Sam and Mayor Nava said, from 6 to 18. Is there a medium in between the medium?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we kind of set up these alternatives. There's an infinite number of alternatives, but we wanted to have a finite number. And so, I think on the wastewater there, we looked at the critical projects, and then there was a big step up to the medium scenario.
Yeah, 3 times bigger, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could kind of, because the 23s are not even going to go.
Right.
But if you could just find that medium, out of the medium, we would appreciate that.
Councilmember Couchman.
My other question, I suppose, is that we always look at these things when we look at the percentages of increase, okay, and we look at that. But then I think we also, even though we don't like doing that, we have to consider the other areas of the valley. We have to consider maybe what we call our competition, maybe we don't call it our competition, but I think we have to be reasonable in what we're requesting, both of our residents that move into town and businesses that come into town. And so I think we have to watch those kinds of figures, because we don't want to be the top one in the county, in the county for these types of rates, because then we basically lose something on the other side. We don't get the development, so we don't grow, so then our costs go up. And so ultimately there's a break-even point, I think, that happens with that. So we have to be very careful about that. And while I don't like comparing this with El Centro or Imperial or something, because everybody has a different scenario as to what their needs are and what's going on within their communities, I do think we do find ourselves in that comparison mode at times, where we have to try to be reasonable and try to be comparable to cities our size and comparable to areas our size, so that we're still attractive for people to move into town. They can set up a household, they can set up a business, and still meet the fee schedules that they're going to have to meet, and water and wastewater is one of those. It may be a minor one, and I don't know that for a fact. I think on the residential side it may be minor, on the business side it may be major, depending upon what the circumstances are. But I think we have to be very clear that we have to maintain some level of reasonableness within the fee increases that we may be looking to do, or else we lose in another area.
Right, we want to keep those as low as possible, and that's why we showed the survey, so you can see how you compare with some of the surrounding communities.
Right.
Well, thank you again for that information. I would like to provide some staff direction at this time. Seeing the comments that have been expressed by council, I would like to entertain a motion to see if we could have staff further explore for the Water Enterprise Fund options 1 and 2, and provide more information for that. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
So there's a motion and a second, and the motion is to further explore options 1 and 2 for the Water Enterprise Fund. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we're going to do that, and I'll break it down for the Wastewater Enterprise Fund. I would make a motion to consider option 1, the critical pay-as-you-go, and I would limit the motion to just that item. Is there a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
There's a second to that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that's direction to staff. If you could please consider those options for us and provide more information at a future date. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Information very helpful.
I'm going to move on to regular business 4B, discussion of potential action regarding the assessment of development impact fees for the Malin Street Apartments, including adoption of City of Brawley Resolution Number 2015- Resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, approving and authorizing a request for AMG and Associates seeking execution of an impact fee deferral agreement to support the construction of a 41-unit, 2-story, income-restricted family apartment complex located on the southeast corner of Malin Street and South First Street in the City of Brawley.
And Mayor Nava, I'll be presenting this item tonight with the help of our planning director. We have a project that has come forward to the City of Brawley through the Development Review Committee process and site plan review. And a site plan has been approved for the Malin Street Apartments development, which is scheduled to be developed at just immediately south of Witter School on Malin Street. The applicant is here this evening, Mr. Cameron Johnson, and is available for questions, but the primary request is that the city consider an arrangement, which is not something that has come forward to the council before, so I'll take a little bit of time to describe.
It's usually the other way around. Okay.
The project applicant is requesting that the nexus study that we currently have in place for development impact fees, that we use the fully phased-in impact fees and assess those fees to this apartment project. It's a multifamily project that aims to take advantage of tax credits. It's a very competitive process, so by structuring this arrangement in this fashion, the applicant has the opportunity to better compete for those tax credits. The structure would be as follows. The city would actually assess the fully burdened development impact fee rate on the project, and the applicant would only pay those items that are that fee that is currently on the books at the time that they pull the building permit, and the difference between what is currently applicable to the project today and the burden rate would be paid to the city over time. And by structuring it in this fashion, it allows to show that the city has money on the books, that it's contributing to the project theoretically, and assists the project with moving forward and competing for tax credits. What we're asking for today is for consideration of a resolution that would approve and authorize this request from AMG and Associates seeking execution of an impact fee deferral agreement to support the construction of the first phase of 81 units, so a 41-unit, two-story, income-restricted family apartment complex, and authorize the city manager to execute all documentation. Mr. Johnson may have some comments to share with us this evening. Councilmember Campbell and I did attend last week's Imperial Valley Housing Authority board meeting. Unfortunately, for lack of a quorum, the item wasn't able to be approved. It's a very large board that requires 9 attendees to reach quorum. Unfortunately, only 8 were present. The Housing Authority and AMG and Associates are working very closely on this project. Housing Authority actually will assume ownership for a period of time to assist this project as well with moving forward. Yeah. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to respond to them, and Mr. Johnson's here as well. I'm sure he would be the same.
I did attend that meeting, and Cameron, if you like, you can come on up, and I think it'd be a worthwhile project for the city.
I would say that it's an unusual request. They usually are asking for lower impact fees, but if you want higher fees, of course.
It is a very unusual request. Again, Cameron Johnson, AMG and Associates. Good evening. The program that we use to fund these projects is the 9% tax credit program. It's an extremely competitive program. We're going to be competing with projects throughout the state. The program favors projects that have local participation, so sure. Funds from either the city, the county, and as a lot of cities out there actually do have monies. And I know the city of Brawley doesn't have a pot of money available for housing projects, so essentially what we're doing is we're creating a source. We're just asking that you charge us the fee that you would probably have your impact fees now, but you guys have, I think, artificially kept them low to stimulate development and the economy, which I applaud you for, and it's effective. In this case, we're just simply asking that you charge us the current fee and defer the balance. That will be paid over time through cash flow. It'll be secured by a note and deed of trust against the property. So essentially that goes in the city's books as an asset. We're still going to pay the current fees that are due. We pay all the school fees.
Sure. So the fees that are assessed currently would be paid, but the difference between that and the top tier of the Nexus, is that correct? Would be deferred.
Correct. Right. Yeah, and that would be, you would have a cash flow interest in the project. So basically, residual receipt interest of 20% of the cash flow, whatever's available. These projects, they're affordable housing projects. They don't throw off a lot of money. The expenses are still very high, but the rents are driven very low to make them affordable for the low-income, tenants in your population. So it does take time, but if we ever refinance the project, that gets paid off. But over a period of time, it will get paid back. And again, it does go on the city's books as a receivable. It's an asset. And so we look at it as a win-win. It's not an ideal situation for us. We don't like to do that. It does lessen the value of the project. But the way I look at it is if this program works, we can continue to build more affordable housing in your community. I have another site I'm looking at for some senior housing. So I would like to, this is essentially a public-private partnership between the Imperial Valley Housing Authority, our company, and also the City of Brawley. You guys are basically a partner in this project with us.
And this isn't necessarily directed at what's before us, but can you just describe a little bit about the building standards, the type of building that would be erected there? Is that?
Sure, yeah. We did receive, I've been working with Gordon, and these project, phase one is a 41-unit project. They're eight plexes, garden-style eight plexes with 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units. There'll be a 2,500 square foot community building with a computer room, exercise room. There'll be a swimming pool, a tot lot. The project will offer supportive services to the tenants such as financial literacy, resume building, health and wellness classes. So it's not just about providing housing, it's also about trying to get people back on their feet. We have 24-hour on-site resident management, so there will be an on-site manager at all times. We do strict tenant screening, criminal background check, so we don't just accept anybody. The quality of construction has to meet very high standards. This project is essentially owned by Fortune 500 investors. They're the purchasers of the tax credits. They own this project, so we have to. We have annual inspections. So the project has to maintain a certain look. If it's not taken care of, the investor risks losing their credit. So they have inspectors. The state does. So you really don't have to worry about this project going downhill because, like I said, it's the ownership. It's private ownership, and they make sure it's taken care of.
Man, I'm sorry. No, can we talk about that property just northwest of it? No, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
But we do have other projects within the city that have same concept, and the standards are very high, and I've seen the quality and the outcome. So
I had to put a little laughter in there, Mayor.
I know, no, that's good. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sam gets weirded out, so we gotta just keep him.
It's okay.
Do we ever send out notices or to the neighborhoods around there, letting them know what kind of project is coming up?
I'm going to have Mr. Geist step forward, but while he comes this way, I'll let you know that prior to the site plan going before the Development Review Committee and through the planning director's process, the zoning was already in place for this property. So it was already set up for an R3. If it had not, let's say it had been a single family or any other zoning other than R3, there would be an extensive noticing and a noticing process in the newspaper as well as to surrounding residents. But in this instance, it's a little bit different because of the zoning already being in place.
The property owners are already aware of it.
And Gordon, would you like to?
Sure. Well, technically it was noticed at one time. When Malin Park, the developer of that subdivision, which that parcel is a part of, was developed, there was actually a bigger area of R3. It actually shrunk to that one parcel. It was actually probably about twice or 3 times as big initially. There was a public notice at that time. Also, when the developer, in their models, when they showed what was going to be there, when people bought those houses, they knew that parcel was for an apartment complex. It was zoned multifamily. So by property rights, though, since it is already R3, all they need to do, unless they need a variance or a conditional use permit or anything like that, if they meet the zoning standards, they don't need to have a public hearing. Just like if you build a single-family house.
It's a building permit, and you go through the...
Right, it's a building permit. Just like if you have an R1 lot, you build a single-family house, you don't have to go through that, otherwise there would be total backlog of public.
You have to conform with the requirements of R3. So the review that was conducted for this project was to make sure that it met all the requirements for an apartment complex.
Meets or exceeds, and in this case, like I said, it totally exceeded the density. They could have actually put more units on there if they desired by the acreage that was there. But usually tax credit ones go in increments of 40, so they stuck with the 81 units.
Any other questions from council? Well, there is a recommendation from the city manager to approve adoption. Is there a motion to approve the item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the adoption and authorizing a request for AMG Associates.
I second that motion.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and good luck. The next item on the agenda is regular business.
Thank you,
4C. Thank you for coming in. Regular business 4C, discussion and potential action regarding timing relief request for the payment of development impact fees for Florentine Estates.
And similar to the last one, I will present with support from our planning director. We have a request that's been included in our council package from Sarton Nahar LLC, which is requesting consideration by the council for timing relief on the payment and development impact fees. Typically, development impact fees are paid in the city of Brawley at the time a building permit is pulled. As referenced in the request letter, there is a desire to have potential timing relief associated with the payment to a point that would be immediately prior to the conducting of a final inspection. There is some limited experience in the city with such timing relief, and that is referenced in the staff report. And one of the things that was encouraging about that past experience was that there were some difficulties the city encountered with the payment of the later payment, and the building official's recommendation coming into this process was to be certain that it was timed with the request for final inspection, because sometimes new tenants get caught in the crosshairs of escrow closing and fees still being outstanding. But since the developer's request was actually timed exactly as proposed by our building official, this appears to be an arrangement that may have fewer obstacles to successful execution. So.
Yeah,
Mr. Shellen?
Mr. Shellen, come on up. I think these gentlemen have been at this project for some time now. Yeah. They've came through on everything that they said they were going to do, and I know there's been some time we agreed and disagreed on certain items and conditions and things, but I will say this, it's a beautiful project. You guys have done a good job out there at Florentine, and I don't see there being an issue with this.
I would agree. I know it's been a difficult project for you.
Thank you.
And I certainly know that the standards there are very high,
very
and
nice.
I want to see your project move forward. And really, there's limited housing options here in the city of Brawley for its residents, so it provides an opportunity for somebody to purchase a home. I want to be able to offer that, so yes. I would be supportive. Councilmember Couchman?
I just want to be sure that as we go through this process, if they pull a permit, okay, and we're going to defer the fee until a certificate of occupancy is issued.
A couple steps before a certificate of occupancy is issued. It's when it's getting really close in the inspections to a final inspection. Prior to our building official agreeing to a final inspection, they must come in and make their payment arrangements.
Or they don't get the certificate of
occupancy. Or
occupancy.
they don't get the final inspection and they don't get the certificate of occupancy.
Question, then, if they begin to build, okay, and they don't pay the fee up front, in the middle of their building, that changes ownership. If the project changes ownership for any reason, what happens then under those circumstances?
What staff is proposing with the involvement of the city council, city attorney's review, is that a security component be incorporated into this arrangement. So a letter of credit, bonding, any number of acceptable forms of security are proposed for attachment to this arrangement.
If someone purchases that property, are they going to be aware that that's a requirement that they have that wasn't paid up front at the start of the building process? And are they aware that they're going to be, well, somebody's going to be liable for that payment before the certificate of occupancy is issued? Or are we going to be put in the position that we're not issuing the certificate of occupancy, The building is going on, it belongs to somebody else, and that requirement to pay that fee is muddied up by that situation.
We did this in Calipatria, same exact thing, and we required that the agreement be binding on successors and assigns. And there were successors due to bankruptcy and all kinds of.
Right, those kind of things do happen.
Yeah,
I don't want to say it's going to happen in this
And the
project.
successors weren't happy about it, but they had to pay.
But they had to pay. As long as this agreement covers
agreements in
that,
place.
then I don't think I have any problem, and that was my question regarding this. And as long as this agreement is pretty much ironclad in that situation, then I can see that, because things do happen, and I mean, I don't know, what's gonna happen tomorrow, and so we need to be prepared to protect ourselves in terms of those fees. And I also don't want to get into a big argument with somebody new that came in and say, hey, we don't owe those fees because they should have paid those fees. So we need to make sure that we're clear on everything that we're doing. Other than that, I don't necessarily have a problem in deferring that to right before certificate of occupancy. But we need to make sure too that the city doesn't issue that certificate of occupancy, because we've run into problems with that in the past. And I know that we've got people that occupy dwellings where there's some issues that we're still working through here within the city. I'm not saying that it's their project or anybody else's, it's not their project, but I mean, there are some issues with some projects that we've had.
I think a neighboring, or in the vicinity, a project did experience that same challenge. One mechanism that we can utilize is the recording of the document, so that it's tied to the title report when a purchase, outside of the single occupant purchase, but if a new developer comes in and purchases.
I would think that would probably.
It's a way we can talk about the, I always get, first of all, Stuart Sheldon from Zartar Nahar and Palm Desert. I know that there's formality. It's actually very lovely to see the council again, the 3/5 of the council. We had long dealings. Good evening, council members.
Stuart, you really mean that?
Mr. Sheldon.
You really mean that?
Battles. Two of you did not, and it's nice to be here in exactly the position. It's actually, it makes me feel really good, Mr. Campbell, too, Council Member Campbell, to hear your feelings about the project. We love being in Brawley. We appreciate the ability to do business in the city. We're proud of the project.
Yeah, you should be.
It's nice to have the road is there, and we're getting, it's IID and gas, but I asked this morning, the gas company is doing something, then IID does something, but it's at least open. It should be about a month, I think, till you're energized. The rec center is being built. To put in context, I always worry about title issues just because lenders and buyers and all these people get a little freaked out when they see abnormal things on title. But and I'll work it out with city manager. We worked out a very long and difficult agreement with road and reimbursements, and I've always had a good working relationship with.
I remember those threads.
City manager.
Those were long
yeah, well,
threads.
I've had people say I'm a little wordy, but to put one thing in context on the project, and I appreciate the fact that it sounds like we'll get this accommodation. We don't build out 40 units at a time. I mean, I'm only going to pull, generally from 6 to 11 units. So you're not the deferral on building permits too, and it's just for about 3 to 4 months until I'm calling for the final. It's not that, like, you're not doing a significant portion of the project. You're only talking your developer impact fees for, as I say, 6 to 11 units. I mean, I only want to get so far ahead of ourselves.
And it's limited risk for you and for us.
Well, and that makes sense.
And it's just a little, when you do these projects, you're always kind of, you're chasing it until the end to a certain extent, because you're putting in improvements in infrastructure and all that cost that gets absorbed along the way. And, developer impact fees they're like a good chunk of your cost. So it just gives you a little bit of sort of elbow room and, in your cash flow. It helps a little bit.
If you could maybe secure it with your ATM card and your PIN, that would work. So I think there might be enough in that bank account.
Mr. Sheldon,
I'll offer my partners.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Real quick, just for the record, I did want to state that, anything like this, and I kind of put the note here, cause, and I can't think, at the end of the day, of a better cause than an existing project.
Thank you very much.
That has had success. And I'll also note, the few years I've been here, one of the only projects that's actually going on in the city of Brawley. So I think there's a partnership there, no doubt. What I'd be interested in, just not to belabor the point, but how well are sales going, if you can share that? I mean, are things moving?
We've sold, you know what, I should have had the exact number. I'm probably close to 40, around there, in terms of closings. I have people, we just had to I got a white report for the models, if people want those, and we're pulling more, we want to pull about 11 permits to go and get the inventory, and also, get the rec center done. It's going nicely, it's even.
That's good. I think that's the important thing. I mean, that's...
And I think we advertise a lot. I mean, I think we market a lot in the city with the billboards and the signs and the radio.
If there are no further comments, I would like to make a motion to approve the timing relief request for payment of development impact fees for Florentine Estates.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Council.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I'll get a draft from you and then...
We'll get a draft from
Mr.
you.
Shellen, I think that's probably the easiest...
I'd love to draft first.
I think that was the easiest appearance before us in the past few years, so congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Wish you well.
Thank the council for, we had the battles at the beginning, but you're part of getting us off the ground as well, and we thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Next item on the agenda is 4D, discussion potential action regarding the establishment of the public meeting schedule for fiscal year 2015-2016 City of Brawley budget process.
And Mayor Nava, we brought this back at the council's request. I believe I erroneously did not make a change to the last entry. At council's request, the April dates were to be held open for future considerations. So we thought we'd try this council meeting if you're ready to set dates so that we have our internal deadlines mirroring your desires as council. I believe the last meeting date, if I'm not mistaken, at the last council meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Wharton mentioned that May 19th may not be a great fit. Or was it the March that you wish to roll over?
Actually, my concern, again, personal, I know I'm 1/5, was actually just that we have 2 dates in April, and I know they're undated, they're just specified for April. So if they coincide with our existing meetings, I'm fine, I'll just plan accordingly. What I was concerned about is if we ended up with special meetings or extra meetings in April. I'm trying to kind of keep that month somewhat open for the potential of a special area.
Gotcha.
Travel arrangement I'd be in. My son might be going to the White House.
So one way to, if council wants to accommodate the request, we can try to incorporate the enterprise and special funds workshop into a normal council meeting. We'll try our very best to keep the agenda as light as we can in one month. In one meeting of the month than the other, so that more room is provided for the workshop discussion.
Just do budget stuff, yeah.
You're saying 5 to 7 p.m. though in your time frames, but you're really talking more like 5 to 6, and then we go to regular council meeting?
Well, if either of those two were regular council meetings, your normal time could be 6 or whatever time you wish.
Or we could set it at 7. We could go from 5 to 7, then have our regular council meeting.
Works
and we
too.
should get everything done that way. Oh, however, the only problem would be if we go beyond the 2-hour time frame.
Right, and last year our workshops were actually not terribly lengthy. The lengthiest content was associated with strategic planning.
Yeah.
Right, and that could be, yeah.
So it kind of depends on how you wish to.
But strategic planning is set up for 6 p.m. at the Emergency Operations Center. Now, that's our regular meeting also, right?
It is.
So how are we going to handle that?
We would try our very best, just as we did at last year's, to really limit the business items outside of strategic planning.
Okay.
And my comment there, because we put the time in strategic planning, I think that helped us out with the rest of the budget process. So we identified a lot
We
of what
really did.
We did a lot of the discussion there.
Before we got into the other discussions.
Yeah, it was a huge assistance in getting things.
So we're looking at April 7th and the 21st.
I'm definitely, Mayor, we're talking about just slightly lengthening our meeting time.
And we can talk about that.
Yeah, so if that works, that works.
But somebody, if you can make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the public meeting 2015-2016 budget process scheduled, to include the April meetings to reflect concurrently with our existing meeting schedule.
7 and 21.
7 and 21.
21.
Would you like the times to stay this early start time or a
5 is good.
What I would like to see is a 5 o'clock start time for the strategic, well, for the general fund workshops and enterprise special fund workshop, and then go to 7, and then have our regular meeting begin at 7, and we'll conduct business from there.
Unless
And that gives us 2 hours per meeting.
Unless we have a long public
Unless we
comment
have a
session.
long agenda. And then I think we need to limit public comments in that time period to 4 minutes. If they want to speak for longer than that, they need to go on the regular agenda, as I've always kind of indicated.
So could the motion state just a start time of 5?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
With the motion stating that we will start at 5 o'clock. 5 p.m.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
There's a second to that motion.
Schedule.
Any further discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for that. And excuse my absence there for a second. Next item is discussion potential action regarding City of Brawley Town Hall meeting at 6 p.m. on March 19, 2015. I know we've talked about this previously. I'm excited to see that there's participation from all levels of government. And so that is a Thursday on March 19th. I know that we had talked about a Tuesday. Unfortunately, one thing that wasn't considered at that time was the fact that the legislators would not be able to attend necessarily. So it actually is, the 19th date works much better just because they will be in the area and they'll be able to participate. I would add that the city staff, Roseanne, our city manager, has been very helpful, so thank you for that. The other item is, remember the gentleman that came in here with the Capital 64s?
Yes.
I offered him a very lucrative non-paying gig, and he accepted that offer, and so he's going to be performing as our house band for the event, which is, I think, pretty nice. Very, very nice of them. He touched base with his band members, and they agreed that they would do it on behalf of the city of Brawley, and they were happy to perform for us. So,
I make a motion that we have the town hall meeting March the 19th at 6 p.m. and with the band, and the council will wear gray Converse tennis shoes.
I don't have any gray Converse tennis.
is there a second to the Great Converse tennis shoes motion? There is. Okay. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you for your support.
Thanks. You can buy my tennis shoes. I'll bill you.
The next item is informational reports.
See?
None at this time.
Next item after that is item 6, City Council member reports. Councilmember Noriega.
Okay, went to the installation of officers at Hidalgo Hall, along with my fellow city council members, and then went to the Parks and Recreation meeting. We talked a lot about Meserve Park, which is really coming along nice. If you haven't come by to see it, please do. The only thing we're missing is the restrooms, and they're working on trying to get some kind of accommodations for that. T is working on it. Pat. Also, and Mr. Rusty Garcia. He's done a lot of work out there, or been part of it. Also went to the library meeting. There's a lot of, it's really nice when you have so many people who are really involved in that board. They are very giving. Judy Parks had a bunch of beautiful books coming in for the children, and so that was really nice. I learned that every once in a while books are taken and not brought back, and so we have to reorder them. And there's a couple of books that have been taken every time we purchase one.
Wow.
They take them, so it must be a great book. She'll have to share with you what the titles of those 2 books are.
Councilmember Couchman, do you know anything about that?
No, I used to do that all the time, but I've turned over a new leaf. I don't take books from the library. I don't check out any books because I have problems with returning them. Go ahead.
So we have, then also went to the State of the County Supervisor, and Mr. Kelly's speech was wonderful, and I really enjoyed that. He gave flowers to his wife, and he kissed her like 3 times in front of everybody, and I thought it was really great. Mayor Nava gave a really good speech also and introduced all of us. Thank you very much. Thought that was really good of you. And that's about it.
Thank you for your report. Very good. Councilmember Couchman.
Okay. I attended the Desert Wildlife Unlimited Banquet event the other night. I won a rifle, so that's probably a good thing.
Look out.
Look out. Okay, no, don't look out. Just a nice little rifle that I won. It was a nice event, well attended here in Brawley at the Lion Center, and we appreciate city, helping with that, I think, and it was a nice event. Certainly preserves desert wildlife for our area, and I think that's important. Went to the Hidalgo installation of officers. I think everybody was there. It was interesting event, and it went very well, and that was great. I did a presentation to the Daughters of the American Revolution on the history of the American flag. That was kind of my own personal thing, but I think it's important that we get out there and educate people on our flag and its symbolism and all of that type of thing. So I did that. I went to the State of the County and also attended the farmers market. So I've been busy the last couple of weeks. But everything went great. Everything's been going well. I thought the farmers market went well. It was a little warm. And maybe we want to consider some changes there in terms of that if the weather continues to stay as warm as it is, more shade, more that type of thing. And I think it's a neat place to have it, but maybe they need to shift a little bit. I don't know that. That's just a personal observation.
Put it in the lawn.
Maybe put it on the lawn, under the trees, might be a better option. But I think that's something the chamber would have to decide. But I think it was a great event anyway, and everybody's out there, everybody's excited about it, and I think everybody goes and enjoys it. So that's a great thing. And so that's my report. So
thank you, Councilmember Couchman. Councilmember Campbell.
Just a couple of things, and some of the council members already touched on the state of the county and the installation of officers was both of those events was well attended, and I appreciate Ryan holding that in Brawley because we were a little nervous about how that was going to be set up, but it actually worked out really well.
Right.
The room was full of folks, but we met outside and had a good time. The weather was perfect. I mean, gorgeous weather. So I did attend my monthly SCAG meeting in Los Angeles. I've been appointed to the Transportation Committee. They had a joint committee meeting this last time, and a really good meeting, and looking forward to Mrs. Walker. Cheryl Walker's going to be the president of SCAG this coming up session, so that's going to be exciting. Someone from the Valley holding that position. It's been, I think John Itney was the last one. I believe it was in 07, 08, somewhere in there.
Maybe 5 years ago?
It's been quite a few years ago. So looking forward to that too. I mean, that way we have a voice. Not that we don't have a voice, but when that person is the president, it means a lot. A couple weeks ago, I attended the Carrot festivities in Hopeville, and I had the opportunity to meet and talk with our assemblyman Eduardo Garcia, and I want to thank Rosanna and staff for supplying me with information and stuff on some grant possibilities for parks and recreation, and hopefully to try to get some funds to get the prison crews back in, because I think right now a lot of the low offenders have been moved to the county, and the county has some kind of program to where I guess you can go and maybe hire these folks to do that work. But I remember when we had the prison crews out working and helping clean the city, it really helped. So if there's any possibility of getting any kind of grants, monies and stuff, I met with Eduardo, and he seemed enthused to try to help us. So, and mainly for Parks and Recs too, to help us with our parks and the bathroom over at Missouri Park. Any kind of funds that we can get for that would be great. Other than that, things have been calm, and I just want to thank everybody for all that they do, and I just ask that God continue to bless you guys and your families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. Mayor Pro Tem Wharton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just echoing the rest of my council. I think we're at the same event. So again, the Hidalgo installation of officers, pretty impressive, 97 years I think it is. It was 97th. Big congratulations to any organization that's been serving the community for that long. So again, enjoyed that night. State of the county, certainly I want to mention, it was really neat to see that hosted here. Very proud of the fact that Supervisor and now our Chairman for the county, Ryan Kelly, who delivered, I think, a fantastic address. And again, congratulations and thank you to our Mayor who really greeted the dignitaries, the crowd, and the public there very well. So very proud to be there with the rest of my council members that night. And we dialed up the great weather. Oh, I do want to throw in a little congratulations also. The BUHS Jazz Band did fantastic. They kind of entertained us for 30 minutes, and let me tell you, that's not an easy crowd necessarily to entertain. And a lot of people stayed in their seats, actually, to listen. So
and one of them was my granddaughter.
That's right, and congratulations to her, and I believe our city attorney's son as well. So a great band, they did a great job. I also attended the PMH Foundation 13th annual Norm Lassie Golf Classic, worthy cause, foundation of our hospital that contributes greatly. I've been a part of that, but it was great to be there and spend a beautiful day, which also I think turned into, I had a wedding to go to, and I know our council member over here had a wedding to go to on the same day. So I guess love was in the air, right, for Valentine's Day. So again, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate everything. Look forward to our next meetings.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Wharton. Again, we attended many of the same events. Hidalgo reorganization was great, well attended, and congratulations to their success and continued success. I also attended the reorganization of officers for the senior center, just more ceremonial, but it was really great to see them, participated with them, and they're so supportive of the things that we do here in Brawley, and I just always like being supportive of their efforts. So I always say, if you ever want to have a good time, go to the senior center, because they're pretty wild.
Was that their Valentine's dance?
It was later that day, yes. And so, and thank city staff for they made some accommodations for a future meeting that was canceled in Westmoreland. We were able to accommodate them, a larger group here in Brawley. So thank you, city staff, that helped with that. A spelling bee at Winter School, I participated in that. It was 1st through 3rd grade, and really cute kids, really cute kids. And it was actually broadcast over the internet for the school to see. So it was something they hadn't done before, and I thought that was really very cool. So the kids were nervous, and I would joke with them, and they were just sitting in their chairs, kicking their feet around. I was like, "Are you guys nervous?" A little bit. It's like it's just so it was just interesting to watch. But it was an honor for me to participate and seeing the kids really excited about being up there and spelling in front of an audience. So. Also had a conference call with Siemens, which is a company that Mayor Pro Tem Wharton and I have run into on 2 occasions now over the past 2 years with respect to and regarding citywide improvements, street lighting, and our infrastructure improvements. So I had a short conference call with them, and I passed them over to our city manager to further that discussion to see if there's mechanisms in place to finance some of these projects that we just saw here today. So I'm hoping that that conversation continues, and I hope that we can work with them to see if there's some solutions for us here within the city. Also, the State of the County address, just like you all, really happy to see it here in the north end of the county in Brawley. And, for me it was, and I mentioned it that night, really that's kind of where it started for me and for Ryan Kelly, and that's the first time I'd met him in person and talked to him in the hallway when I was having a fundraiser. So for me, I think all of you who have worked with me over the years know that Ryan and I are not only good friends, but very good professional colleagues, and I have a high level of respect for him. So to me, it was especially moving to see him come back to his roots. He's done a great job for us in coming to update our council very frequently, and I hadn't seen that before here. So he's a great representative for our area, and he's doing a good job. One last item, thanks to staff for helping with moving Inferno, the project that they're working on, helping moving that forward. I know it hit a wall. Maybe that's a bad term to use, but it hit a wall for a little while. But I'm glad to see that it's moving. Yeah, some hurdles. Maybe that's a better. But hit a wall is probably more accurate.
Can you explain a little bit of what they're doing so the public knows what it is that...
Well, there was some concerns with engineering reports regarding some structural integrity of some pillars and some other things, and they're working on improving those items now and reinforcing it, and I hope that they're getting it completed here in the very near future. So they're doing the construction work now, and hopefully that solves the concern that was expressed. So staff was instrumental in helping move that forward and getting them to where they're at today, which is under construction. So happy to see that. And again, just want to thank staff and everybody else for coming out. I have been doing the KXO radio call-in after the meetings, so I'm doing that on Wednesday mornings. People seem to like that. It gives them an idea of what is going on within the city. It's at 7 in the morning?
I used to do it at 6. That was,
okay.
yeah.
I'll do it at 5 tomorrow.
No,
I'm just kidding.
That way I can be, I want to listen to you.
Yeah, no, it's on there. So, but you know, it's just really a recording. I mean, you're just sitting there talking to yourself, and then they edit it and put it out there. You know, maybe I'll mention something about Sam and those books that you took.
Be nice.
You know, so,
Jump rope for heart.
yeah, right.
Be nice.
Right. He doesn't.
Sam
Right?
buys
He doesn't.
books. Sam goes to the bookstore.
That's
Sam goes
true.
to the
Very
library.
supportive. Sam is very supportive.
of the book.
So that's my report.
Marjo's
and
taking up for you.
right. She has to, right?
She must come over there a lot.
Yeah, right.
He
Our-
took them, Marjo.
So that's my report. Thank you. Next item is city manager's report.
Just two very brief items. Our fire chief was unable to join us this evening. You may have noticed for the last couple of days there was smoke coming from the north end of, or from the northerly direction, and it's actually a fire just outside of our city limits that our fire personnel have been working in our cooperative agreement with the County of Imperial, just outside Del Rio Country Club. So he will be on night watch through most of this evening and sends his regrets for not being able to join
My wife
us.
thought the house was on fire, yes, I know.
I'm sorry?
She thought our house was on fire.
Oh, no
Last night, I
structures
think,
on
or
fire.
something.
Just as a brief reminder, February 27th is the State of the City, hosted by the Chamber of Commerce at the Stockman's Club, and we hope all of you will be available to join. We have extended invitations to all of our various committees and commissions, and look forward to it being a successful event.
Wow.
And that's
Thank you.
Great conversation.
I'm ready.
Yeah, right. Next item is treasurer's report.
Nothing.
Thank you. Next item is city attorney's report.
Tangerine Gardens, the judge did issue them an injunction commanding them to clean that up. And I immediately sent it out for service. I don't know if it's been served yet. It probably has. And I seriously doubt that they'll clean it up. The judge gave them 60 days. And if not, then the city will go in and do it.
Thank you for that update. City clerk's report.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. And let's take a very, very brief break and come back into closed session so we can get through this one item and be going. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't leave them.